The question is that the motion be agreed to, but before I call the Honourable David Shearer, I would like to point out to people in the gallery that they are being more than a little noisy, and if they're going to continue at that volume, they should take it outside. David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, it's with great pleasure that we support this bill as well. It was a bill that was originally put together, as the Minister said, in 2006. Lay in abeyance for all of that time. The government did not pass it through. But now, with some amendments they have now made, and particularly prompted by the possibility that we might enter into a free trade agreement with the EU, has accelerated the importance and the significance of getting this bill through Parliament by the end of this year. So on last weekend, I was very privileged to attend the New Zealand Wine Awards in Auckland, and I acknowledge Stuart Smith over there, who was also in attendance and was one of the, what do you call, the Grand Masters of the New Zealand wine industry. Fellow, thank you, Stuart, a fellow. And it was, I've got to say, it was with my colleague here, Jacinda Ardern, as well. It was a really and the member for Wairarapa as well. I won't go through everybody else because there were quite a few people there. But let me get back to the point. I think what was, for me, was the most significant thing, was the touching thing really, was that the people who were there were not the sort of had a passion for wine. They weren't people who you would maybe associate with, high society, with tippling on wine. They were people who, when you shook their hands, had clearly been out in the vineyards for a while and had calluses on their hands, and they were people who had grown wines, tasted them, manufactured them, and effectively told the story of an industry which is an agricultural industry which feeds off our natural resources through our expertise and is now commanding the best prices in the world. It is truly a story about agriculture from the growing right through to the value added and the marketing and the export, we've got, obviously, which is mostly exported. And so it really was, I have to say, a pretty, actually a sobering, that's a bad word for it, but certainly yeah, thank you, Dr. Coleman. It was something that I felt quite privileged to be at, to be with these people who had contributed so much. As the Minister said, we are now looking at $1.6 billion worth of exports. It's looking to be, they're aiming towards $2 billion by 2020. That's in just under 3 years. That's an extraordinary expansion. And people would say that that's possibly impossible. But in fact, as in 1990 it was 100 million, and now it's 1.6 billion. So that expansion is pretty extraordinary. And the other important issue around this was that the fact that New Zealand wines do obtain the highest value, and it's $9 approximately a litre for New Zealand wines, around $7 a litre for Australian wines, and a miserable $5 a litre for French wines, which you would have expected possibly to have been higher, but New Zealand wines is in that high level. They are sought after, they are high quality, and they are sought after around the world. Sir, the EU trade deal that's coming up is significant for us. There's 500 million consumers, high-value consumers, easily the highest value trading block that we will have the possibility of going into in terms of a market, and a block that appreciates wine as well. So the possibilities of being able to export wine into the EU without tariffs much more freely is a tantalising one, and one that I think will push those exports of wine even further. So this is an industry that therefore needs to be protected. The Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, as the Minister just said, needs to be protected, as in it will be Marlborough and it will be Sauvignon Blanc. Likewise with Otago Pinot Noir, exactly the same issue. It's like Champagne. The champagne that's grown can only be called Champagne if it's grown Champagne if it's grown within Champagne, within the district of Champagne in France. Even cheese, feta cheese, can only be grown in a particular place within Greece. These are trademarks that need to be protected. They're important for exports and to keeping that value added up, and for New Zealand having that designation of Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc or Otago Pinot Noir maintains both the quality and ensures that no other wine growing area across the world, France for example, that grows much less quality wine than we do, can somehow call their wine Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc if they ever wanted to do that. So, sir, this is a bill that I think has got widespread support right across the House. I don't think there's anybody that would disagree that this is good for New Zealand, it's good for exports, it's good for our wine industry. And as I say, sir, I was particularly impressed by the way in which our wine industry both has grown, but not just grown in numbers, but has grown in terms of quality and the way that that quality is appreciated right across the world. So the Air New Zealand Wine Awards, and I've got to say Air New Zealand does a terrific job in terms of promoting New Zealand wine, both on their flights but also in getting in behind this event. Saw that the Pinot Noir that was finally got the Supreme Award came from a 3.6 hectare farm or vineyard in Otago. Although I have to say there's a Pinot Noir from Marlborough which was highly recommended as well. But certainly Marlborough did extraordinarily well in terms of the awards that were handed out last weekend, the premium awards of the year in terms of wine. And like the previous speaker, we acknowledge what's happened in Marlborough, the challenges they've faced because of the earthquakes, the challenges that they face now, and the damage that they've sustained in the past couple of days, and wish them very well in terms of being able to get back on their feet and begin their terrific work that they have up to now being able to undertake. So, sir, with that, I just want to note that this bill itself is a rather technical bill. It just brings into play the 2006 bill, which has been, as I say, has been on the books and languishing there for a long time until the government woke up to the fact that it probably needs to get it through. It will mean that there's a registration fee paid in order to be able to designate those wines. It will mean that that opposition to that designation can be heard, and that that opposition can be noted and dutifully being able to be considered. And sir, and thirdly, a third issue that's in part of this bill is that any terms or terminology that is offensive to Maori can be acknowledged and considered as well. And I think that's very important too as we go forward. So with that, sir, I will finish early to say once again that Labor supports this bill wholeheartedly. It's a bill that Labor brought in 2006 that the government sat on for the last 8 years. And sir, we want to see our wine industry growing as it has done over the past number of years, past 2 decades, and going from success to success. And once again, I congratulate them on their fine work.